We're back. You already know what time it is. It's R3's time. What we read. I'm Naila, and your CEO and your founder of R3. We're Eyes, We're Lives, We're Lives, where we promote knowledge of self through education and activism. What better way to do that than to rewrite and comprehend for your own understanding? So we're jumping back into our weekly read, and we are starting off with a new book. This book, excellent. I actually wanted to match the book today, if you guys can tell my outfit color. So we are going to be reading The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi. I always say it backwards. Ta-Nehisi Coates. So far, it's going to be a very interesting read. So if you don't know Ta-Nehisi Coates, he is an essayist. He's a novelist. But he introduced, this is one of his first books, actually. One of the books that is very familiar is his novel, Between the World and Me, where he gives a lot of introduction on race, but also just the Black experience through different times, slavery, on the plantation. So this book is going to jump right into it, and more of, instead of historical facts, we're going to get into more metaphorical, talking about different ideas. Also, the Hiram, who is one of the characters we'll learn about of this book, he has this special talent. So we'll talk about a little bit of that and how, the African diaspora, all of us, have these special gifts and talents, spirituality, I like to call it. But he has a special talent that's going to be one of the conductors as he is transitioning into his stages of revolutionary action, I like to call it. But this book is going to talk about a lot of memory, and not only in ourselves, but just in a metaphorical stance. Memory, he has lost the memory of his mother, so we're going to go over a little bit of that.
Wait, don't tell us too much.
Okay, so I won't tell you guys too much, but it's going to go over a lot of details, so we'll be discussing. But this is giving us not an easy read, but an interesting read to where we can have an imagination at the same time. So I'm going to pass it over to our hosts with the Moses, and we'll do a little bit of an introduction. What's up, Alon? We see you back in the chat. And she's going to let you know a little bit more. But we will be talking a little bit more about the author. I might show a picture of him next week, just so we can get an idea of who wrote the book. Because as you know, we promote knowledge of self through education and activism, and we read from Black authors. So I'm passing it over to our hostess with the Moses, and she's going to let you know a little bit about The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Okay, this is R3. We meet every Tuesdays at R3 Real Eyes. We'll get you to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, as well as a website where you can like, share, follow for free. You can also donate for a fee. Right now, we're talking about the introduction to The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. The Water Dancer is a debut novel by the acclaimed writer Ta-Nehisi Coates, blending historical fiction with magical realism. It tells the story of Hiram Walker, a young man born into bondage with mysterious powder known as a conduction. After a near-death experience awakens his power, Hiram embarks on a journey through the world of the underground, a covert network that helps enslaved people escape to freedom. The novel explores themes of memory, loss, family, and freedom, and the power of storytelling through richly drawn characters and haunting prose. Coates reimagines the Underground Railroad, not just as a route to freedom, but as a mystical, memory-powered path that honors the pain and resilience of the enslaved. There is a couple of terms in the first chapter that I read that I thought it would be good to have the definitions. So the Juba dance is a tradition African-American folk dance developed by enslaved Africans in America. Involves rhythmic clapping, slapping of the thighs, like ham bone, I guess, and stomping performed without instruments. It's used as a form of cultural preservation, emotional release, and community expression. Popularized by Master Juba, a key figure of the development of the African tap dance, symbolizes resistance through the rhythm and survival through expression. And then there's another term that a lot of people might not know. It's not a nice term, but it sounds nice. It's a fancy girl. When they mention fancy girls in the book, or it's a fancy place, it's a term to describe light-skinned enslaved girls and women sold for sexual exploitation, often marketed as concubines or forced prostitution. See, during slavery, when the master, the evil master, procreated, raped, murdered, whatever he did with these enslaved women, and they had these kids who were biracial, then their kids were even put on this different status. I don't want to call them a high status because none of the enslaved had a good life. And then they had kids by the white enslavers. So the lighter the kids got, the fancy girls came, and they were called fancy girls, but they were used as sexual toys for these people. And they fancy maids and fancy boys were also trafficked under the system. They didn't mention the boys too much in history, context, but they were fancy boys too. These individuals were sold at extremely high prices, making them luxury commodities and status symbols from enslavers. It will take the average man about 10 years to purchase a fancy girl in that time. The practice underscores the commodification of black bodies and the layered violence of slavery. Mention of the water dancer to the highlight, particularly vulnerability of women in bondage. And when you think about, like a lot of people, when you think about slave, they got the physical slave and a house slave. And I've heard people over time, my family was house slaves. That wasn't a good place to be. You were brutalized in the house and subjugated in the house by the missus and the mistress, okay? Because the woman was coming after you because you had all these kids, she knew it was her husband's kids. But they, anyway, I don't want to get too much into that. Themes, magic, memory, resilience, the Juba dance definition, we went over that, fancy girls. Okay, and that's it. That's it. So I'm going to bring it back to you. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you. That's why you wanted me to stop. That was your introduction. Uh-oh. Got a button popped. Ignore my shirt, guys. Oh, please. I'm being a fancy girl, clearly. Whoa, wait a second. Musical break. Okay.
Dancing.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so perfect. And thank you for mentioning the summary and the details because that gives a good perspective. So we're just going to read a little bit and, of course, read chapter 1. Read chapter 1 for next week, and then we'll kind of double up just giving how we all feel about the reading, if we can get through it, if we need to speed up and slow down. But just read chapter 1 for next week. I already started to rip my book. I probably should start to get hardback covers. That was just an FYI to everyone. So really quick, Ta-Nehisi Coates opens up this book with a quote from my favorite guy, personally, one of my favorite guys, which is Frederick Douglass. The other one is Huey P. Newton. The other one is Marcus Garvey, but we'll get to that. I have a lot of favorite guys. But Frederick Douglass is one of my most favorite guys that I love to talk about and quote him. So he opens up with a quote from Frederick Douglass, which I love. And it says, "My part has been to tell the story of the slave. The story of the master never wanted for narrators." So a lot of times in history overall, you always are going to hear the winner side, right? Or the losers, I should like to call it. But you're always going to hear the person who won side. You're never going to hear both sides. You know how they say it's two sides to every story? We always are hearing the end story, the people who won or overcame, right? And so it's important that we highlight the story of people we call the loser or the people who do not win so that we can see both sides to every story. Melody said that's the truth in the chat. So we can see both sides to every story. So I love that Frederick Douglass I love that Ta-Nehisi Coates put Frederick Douglass in the beginning for chapter 1. My part has been to tell the story of the slave, the story of the master that never wanted for the narrators, never wanted for the narrators, never wanted to hear for the readers, because we technically were nobodies, right? The enslaved people. I know Frederick Douglass would have put enslaved at this time. But anyways, jump on over to it. So chapter 1 opens up and it says, the sun is moving. I didn't turn my light on, so forgive me for that. But it says, "And I could only have seen her there on the stone bridge, a dancer, wreathed in ghastly blue." Oh, look because that was the way they would have taken her back when I was young, back when the Virginia earth was still red as brick and red with life. And though there were other bridges spanning the River Goose, they would have bound her and brought her across this one, because this was the bridge that fed into the turnpike that twisted its way through the green hills and down the valley before bending in one direction, and the direction was south. I had always avoided that bridge, for it was stained with the remembrance of the mothers, uncles, and cousins gone at Natchez Way. But knowing now the awesome power of memory, how it could open a blue door from one world to another, how it could move us from the mountains to the meadows, from the green woods to the fields caked in snow, knowing that the memory could fold the land like cloth, and knowing too how I had pushed my memory of her into the down there of my mind, how I forgot but did not forget. And that reminded me of my grandfather, my pawpaw. They want us to forget. How I forgot but did not forget. I know now that this story, this conduction, had to begin thereon. That fanatic bridge between the land of the living and the land of the lost. And she was patting Jumba on the bridge, an earthen jar on her head, a great mist rising from the river below nipping at her bare heels, which pounded the cobblestones, causing her necklace of shells to shake. The earth jar did not move. It seemed almost a part of her, so that no matter her high knees, no matter her dips and the bends, her splaying arms, the jar stayed affixed on her head like a crown. And seeing that incredible feat, I knew that the woman patting Jumba, wreathed in ghastly blue, was my mother. Okay? And so, let's go on. We'll just finish this off. It says, no one else saw her, not Maynard, who was then in the back of the New Millennium chase. Not the fancy girl who held him, wrapped with wiles, and most strange, not the horse, though I had been told that horses had a nose for things that stray out from other worlds and stumble into ours. No, only I saw her from the driver's seat of the chase, and she was just as they described her, just as they said she had been in the olden days, when she would leap into a circle of all my people, Aunt Emma, young P. Honus, and Uncle John, and they would clap, pound their chests, and slap their knees, urging her on in double time, and she would stump the dirt floor hard, as if crushing a crawling thing under her heel, and bending at the hips and bow, then twist and wind her bent knees into the union with her hands, the earthen jar still on her head. My mother was the best dancer at the Loch Ness. That is what they told me. And I remember this because she gifted me with none of it. But more I remembered because it was the dancing that brought her to the attention of my father, and thus had brought me to be. And more than that, I remembered because I remembered everything, it seemed, except her. It was autumn now, the season when the races came south. That afternoon, Maynard had scored on a long-shot thoroughbred and thought this might at last win the esteem of Virginia quality he sought. But when he made the circuit around the great town square, leaning back, way back in the chase. How do you say that? Chaise? The chase. And grinning large. The men of society turned their backs to him and puffed on their cigars. There were no salutes. He was what we would always be. Maynard the goof. Maynard the lame, Maynard the fool, the rotten apple who fallen many miles from the tree. He fumed and had me drive to the old house at the edge of our town, Starfall, where he purchased himself a night with a fancy, and had the bright notion to bring her back to the big house at Loch Ness, and most faithfully, in a sudden bout of shame, insisted on leaving the back way out of town, down Dumb Silk Road, until I connected to that old turnpike, which led us back to the bank of the River Goose. And we'll stop there. Just wanted to give a quick little introduction to it. Don't want to read it too much. Chapter 2 is chapter 1 will be ending on, it's only a few short pages, so I'll let you guys get into that read. It ends on page 9. So make sure you read chapter 2. I, of course, will probably read chapter 1 and 2. And chapter 3 starts on page 24. So if you can, read up to page 10. If you are a champion, read up to page 24. And again, we are reading The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. This excellent book is going to put us in an introduction of, like Frederick Douglass quote says, the narration from the slave's perspective, not just what the master wants us to know. So I'm Naila. I'm your CEO, your founder of R3, Real Eyes, Real Lives, Real Lives, where we promote knowledge of self through education and activism. What better way to do that than to read? Read with us. Join the book club. This link will be up on our website soon, but I'm going to pass it over to our hostess with the mostest. She'll let you know a little bit more. Here she is.
Okay, I was getting the call. But yeah, R3 Real Life, we're here every Tuesday. The time might change, but we will keep you updated. But every Tuesday we're here at R3 Real Life. Go to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and register on the website. And you can like, share, and follow for free on all of those forums, and you can donate on the website. On the website, you get the opportunity to also sign up for the book club. Am I frozen? Can you guys hear me?
No, we hear you.
Oh, you look frozen. Oh, you look frozen. Okay. You can sign up on the website, and that'll keep you up to date on all of our campaigns, the current books that we're reading, and the like. And you can also reach out and email and ask questions and make suggestions. But anyway, we'll be here. We're reading the terDancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. The first chapter is really good. I've engaged already. I like the flow of the book and how he's writing. And I like that it's a book that's weaving fiction and nonfiction and magic and realism all into one. So we get some historical context. Might not be facts, but it'll be some stories weaved in there about what people thought and how they lived their life. Because I'm pretty sure, just like the Juba dance, I've never heard of that term, but he did extensive research into the life of people during enslavement and freedom. So anyway, at R3 Real Life, and check us out. See ya.
All right, perfect. And what I like too about so far, he didn't even say the character's name yet. His name is Hiram. But anyways, we'll learn about that later. But he didn't say the character's name, and I like how I can already get an idea of who he is that is talking. And then introducing his power already in the beginning to be a conductor, or a conduction is his power. And a conduction of water and memory, and being able to have those two work together. I did want to point out too that it is a thing. If you ever hear, well, you're going to hear it now. But water has memory. So I actually like that that's his magical power. And that is something that is an African thing. We do everything with water, going to the water. The even religious aspects, the Christians do the whole water thing, baptizing in the water. The first water that we experience is the water of the womb when you come out of your mother. So water is very important, not only in the creation of life, but it's also important in African spirituality and the African diaspora and our ancestral ways. And also, if you ever even want to put religion into it, in the Bible, it even tells you that where the firmament is divided amongst the waters. The waters at the top and the waters below. And we only see the waters below, but there's a reason why they can't get out of here and they're shooting from Mars all the time. But the waters of the firmament, the dome that they can't break. So it's very inspiring to understand that. And if you know a little bit about African spirituality, we'll introduce it a little bit later. But the 9 Anads, and there's one Anad that is above us, Tefnut and Nut and Shu, who are the gods of water, gods of moisture, gods of mist that hold the earth up, but also hold us down, which is Jeb, which is the god of earth, right? So if we know a little bit about those things too, it's very easy to conceptualize what he's talking about, and just how water is very important for his power, but also his memory of his mother, and remembering that he doesn't remember. I thought that was powerful, because a lot of times we always say we don't remember, but you're saying what you don't remember. You just don't have the idea, so you remember it, but you remember that you don't remember, if that makes sense. And I like that, because sometimes I say things and I'm like, I remember that. Okay, I don't remember what I wanted to say, but I remember what I wanted to say. I just can't find it yet. It's somewhere that I put in the back of my head.
Wait till you turn 50.
Anyways, so it's somewhere in the back of my head. So just think about that. think about water, the meaning of water. And lastly, water holds memory. We drink ancient water. A lot of people don't know that. It's just a recycling thing that happens. Water falls from the sky. It lands in the earth. We put it in the plants. We drink it. We, urinate it out, and then it goes in a full recycle. So we drink ancient water. So sometimes you can do something like speak to your water. It holds memory. Speak who you are. Speak your existence. Positivity to speak into the water before you drink it. And that's a big one too. But anyways, we'll wrap up there. I just wanted to put out a little bit of my insight. And then, it's the Real Book Club where we read every Tuesday. Check out the link. We read every Tuesday so far, 6:30. Just be in the waiting room, and I will let you in. We're reading The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and we'll learn a little bit more, too, about the author next week. Read chapter 1. It ends on page 10. And if you are a good one, make sure you read to chapter 2. It ends on page 25. See you guys next week. Peace. Or we say threes. 3. Watch, she puts her 3 up. Let's see if they're all going to put a 3 up. Up, look, up. There goes Instagram. 3. How where are you? 3. Perfect. Okay. All right. So we'll see you guys next week. And then the link will be up for everyone to join. Share, like, follow, even on TikTok. I'm going to start updating our TikTok more. Peace. We'll see you next week. Uh-oh.
Recording